Alrighty, hello everyone. Welcome to weekly security policies team meeting, and let's get started. I believe all items are from Grant. I'll chime in a little bit about FCL, but let's get started with the first item, Grant.
Sure, and feel free to add items. I don't want to hijack the conversation, but in the past we've talked about this is a good time to make sure that we're kind of communicating any fine points. So I'll start by just kind of checking in on progress for compliance enforcement of security policies. I feel like we've been communicating very well in Slack and in the threads there, but we can just kind of double check on where things are if there are any clarifying questions. So first off, on I think it seems like we're good on allowing users to enforce MR approvals. Thanks, Martin, for like going really deep and making sure that things are properly in place there. So based on what we saw, I think there was one piece that would be nice to double check is if we were to add an exception for a specific group and project outside of the policy project, because I just tested like exception main, but I think we should have support for like, I think it's like group project. We have some kind of syntax there. I haven't
Yeah, I
checked
think you
that.
can provide a project path and the
Right.
branch name. Yep.
Yeah, so I think that would be a good thing to just quickly check. But I think it seems like with your testing, everything, I feel like you're right that it was the fact that I was using main for that test. It didn't have any other protected branches to add as an exception. So yeah, I think we need to follow that up and add some issues to address once we roll this out. But I think it's going to be in a workable state to address the original requirements, which is the goal there, and then we can do some additional improvements and add docs to highlight any limitations we did discover there.
Yep, sounds good.
Cool.
So it was enabled on GitLab.com, right? But what we are missing yet is the MR to enable it by default, right? Do we want to do it this week?
That's correct. So I was waiting for the testing, so I gave it a week to test properly, and seems like, yeah, as Grant said, we're good to go. So I will prepare the DMR to enable it by default.
Amazing. Alrighty, thank you.
All right, cool. So we're on 1B. I wanted to check. I think it seemed like maybe these other two epics were slipping a bit. But I don't know if I'm missing a status update somewhere. I just haven't gotten to all my to-dos. So while we're here, I thought I'd just check and see how things are looking on these other two epics, if there are any blockers or questions. I think Alexander isn't here.
Alexander's
He might have
tracking it. Let's see.
I can maybe say something about the prevent pushing and force pushing. I think the last piece there is the MR from you, Alan, and then we should be good to go. The MR for front end, which disables the unprotect button, was merged today. So I believe it should be already deployed, and if not, then tomorrow, and we can verify it. But there is still this one MR open to prevent pushing. So currently it only works for force pushing.
Yeah, we just received a few hours ago a feedback from the maintainer. I'm not sure if I'll be able to actually address any feedback. Is there anyone that would like to take it from me and just see what is missing? I know, Martin, you did great work while I was out. I'm just curious if there is someone, because I'm right now working on FCL, preparing all of that, and also today we have a calibration session, so I have lots of paperwork to handle. And yeah, I could possibly take a look there tomorrow or day after tomorrow, but I'm not sure. Nope. All right. I'll see what I can do. Let's see. We were going to talk about this on one-on-ones tomorrow, so we'll see. Thank you.
maintainer seems to be having issues verifying it. I can continue to improve the setup steps. Yeah, they said they're stuck on some step now. And I'll look into it. But I can't help with any of the backend stuff.
Okay. Thanks, Alexander.
If there are any more open backend questions, I can address them. That's no
Thank
problem.
Is there a link to this MR that someone can drop into the notes? Because yeah, if there are verification steps, then maybe I can I don't mind taking a look too and seeing like if it's very clear where they're stuck.
Yep, I've added to the agenda.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, and we jumped over. Thanks, Alexander. Appreciate that. Looks like we jumped over branch modification. So yeah, Alexander, you were hopping on. We covered A already. We're good to go there. Talked about C, and then on branch modification on B. Any thoughts or updates on that? I think for some of these we were concerned there might be some slippage. What do you think this one's going to fall? Or blockers do you think we can help with essentially?
Yeah, this one's the most likely to slip because there's two issues right now. One Sashi and I are working on, which is if a branch is protected, it shouldn't be able to be removed as the default branch. And then that's the first issue. And the second issue is it looks like there was a change in requirements at some point. And so where when a branch is protected, instead of just not being able to unprotect it, at one point it seems that we decided on that the settings shouldn't be able to be changed at all. And so there's some like undoing of some of the back end work that was done there to protect it from not just unprotecting, but like modifying any of the settings. And we have issues open for both of those.
Okay. If there is clarification needed on those issues, feel free to ping. I mean, we can talk about it now too, but it may, if it's like in the weeds, it might help to take a closer look in the issue.
Cool. Yeah, I assigned the one to modify the settings just so that you can't unprotect but you can still like change the allowed to merge or allowed to push to Alan because he was working on that prior. But Alan, it sounds like you're busy, so we can get it assigned to someone else. And there's issues for those. But looking at the timeline, like the release is next Thursday. And the MRs for those two issues haven't even been created yet. And plus there's the team day early next week. And so like get these MRs in, turn the feature flag on, and like fully test this feature all before next Thursday seems unlikely.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, thanks. I think that helps just to talk it out. I think we can focus on getting A and C released and then follow on next milestone with the branch modification. If that works, I think we need to make sure that they work separately properly. Yeah. So it's additive and it doesn't conflict, but it sounds like we can go with that.
Totally. Well, you then we had talked prior about you saying that these three projects sort of come as a bundle.
They do, like yeah.
Are you just gonna postpone making release posts about them, or?
I'm actively thinking. I think we have 3 separate release posts, but yeah, the goal was to try to get them out together, because the customers that we want to communicate to, like, they're waiting on, like, these all satisfy like kind of like one requirement in a way. Like they are all kind of a bundle, but we do have separate MRs already for each one, and they kind of communicate that they're tied together, so they would have appeared in separate release post items. But you know, the intent was to have them to go together. But I think, you know, we have with A especially, and I think that's kind of a critical piece. I think with the pushing and force pushing, that is also critical to get you into the MR experience to be able to do the approvers. Like, if you can circumvent creating an MR, then A is not very useful. So I think with A and C, let's go ahead and release those, and then with branch modification, we'll add that. We'll get it in as soon as we can next milestone, and it shouldn't be, you know, detracting from the value that we're adding in A and C, if that makes sense. It will be additive.
Cool. And the feature flags should be all independent of each other. So that should be good.
Cool. Yeah. Ideally, it would be great to have them together, but I mean, these are very separate projects and a lot of work going into it, and there's value add with A and C. Let's push forward, and really appreciate everyone's effort on that and due diligence. So yeah, thank you all. Any last questions on 1? Cool. All right, let's jump into number 2. Enforce scan execution policy variables with highest precedence. I think it's pretty clear. We know we've been really heads down on the topic from 1 and all those different projects. So I don't expect we would have made a bunch more progress. I might have missed some updates, but I wanted to double check on this. I was having some discussion with Sam, and it seems like we should be able to get some support on this, that it wouldn't necessarily be security policies implementing the source value for jobs epic. And if this could contribute to our solution, I'm just wanting to throw out there, maybe we might want to consider if this will help make our solution more robust, if we can move a little bit more quickly with that work completed. So it's a heads up, it's an idea. You guys are the experts, so you tell me, but I just want to make sure that I'm, you know, liaising on my end to try to make things a little bit smoother for you guys in terms of implementation. And I want to make sure that we're not having to put together a solution that we're gonna have to come back and refactor. If we can start with a more robust solution, like if it takes an extra milestone to get this completed, but it's more robust, then that is workable. If it's going to take, you know, 3 milestones, maybe we go with a shorter term solution. So that's kind of the view I have on it.
I think the source will not help with the precedence at all, so we don't have to wait for it. And the current status is that there is an MR open, and it's waiting for review from Verify Pipeline Security, and there is a reviewer assigned already, so I think they will have a look either today or tomorrow, and we'll get some feedback on whether this is a viable way to go forward.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, I have the next item about linking security policies to compliance frameworks. Quick update. We have a working solution on the backend side in terms of being able to, Andy is verifying it currently, but you're able to specify the policy scope. And for policy scope, you are able to either decide about compliance framework that is assigned to the project. And based on that, we can apply policy or not. And similar to projects, you can exclude projects or prepare a policy only for certain projects. So this is enabled on staging, although frontend is not yet finished there. So so you might see some work in progress there on the front-end side. Although Sashi is working right now on GraphQL queries and adding new fields. So compliance will start looking into implementing their part of code based on ours, but yes, some of it is ready and we'll be able to, I'm not saying releasing it, but at least testing it internally. So that is one thing. Maybe if anyone has some questions, would like to add something about that.
Well, regarding front end, if we're talking about compliance frameworks and policy scope, well, basically all MRs are ready. They just split it out one after another for easy review, but they're all in line one after another. So
Amazing,
I have attached the video how it looks like in the issue. Yeah.
I saw the video. Looks amazing. So yeah, I believe at some point we're going to decide when we would like to release it, at what point, what kind of features we would like to see from the compliance perspective as well. Although being able to specify policy scope without advanced UI to either select policies from the compliance framework list or any other stuff that is there in the epic, we will be able to do it in the next milestone, I believe, which is great.
Yeah, sorry, Alan. I have put one extra question regarding compliance frameworks, but in section other issues. This is about we currently don't have like a query that fetches projects connected to compliance framework. So, and in our new design, we have it only in one place. When we hover over compliance item in dropdown, there is a popover with the list of projects that are connected to this. So should it be in first iteration or can we add it as a follow-up? I've attached all the links in the question so you can just follow it so you can understand what I'm talking about.
Yes, the ping from yesterday. Okay, I'm behind on to-dos. Okay, so we need the GraphQL query to be able to pull in that list of frameworks.
No.
No? Okay.
Just we have the list of frameworks, and basically the whole feature is working. Like we have this section for policy scope. We can either select compliance frameworks or exclude or include projects. But there is an extra feature, like in a design. Yeah, when you hover over an item, you can see the popover. Yeah. So, and here we need to fetch the list of related projects. And we don't have that query for compliance framework yet. So, yeah.
Got it. Okay. And is that something that that query is? I would need to go back to the breakdown, but was it something that we would depend on the compliance team for, or we just need to implement on our end? Or I guess maybe it's a question mark. It's just work to be done.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I believe it's something we can do in the follow-up. It would not be a problem to add it. Yeah, that's up to you. From my
no, that was
that
was a second question. It was a separate question. And this, I agree. I do think that it's additive to be able to see the scope. Like this is going to be really nice just to be able to have a scope on a policy. Like it is going to make a lot of customers happy.
Sorry for interrupting. I can quickly demo how it works locally right now. What we have, if it's okay.
That would be great.
So yeah. Let me. Do you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, here's this new section with policy scope, and there is a drop down with 3 options. But yeah, we can choose a framework. It's basically fetched from the backend already, so we can select a couple items. Yeah, you can see it's there is a new YAML properties. We can create a new one if we want. There is a form for that. Like it will be immediately added to the list. Yeah, and so there is no this popover yet because we don't have the list of project fetched for compliance framework.
Right.
But yeah, I can select another option like all projects in scope except, and I can select project. Sorry, I have some very long names for testing. Well, basically the YAML will look like this. Policy scope projects excluding, and we can also specify project that we want to include. Yeah, it will be different. So
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
So
this looks awesome.
one thing that we'll need to improve is the YAML format. I just noticed that in the schema we have like a list of objects where you specify ID and the ID of the project. Here in your demo, I saw global ID, which is like the whole section of the ID that is used on GraphQL. So I believe the change by itself, it's quite small. I believe we can.
Sure. I'll update it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
I
looks
think
great.
yeah, agreed. I think one thing that we'll want to consider is one that we kind of come up against a couple of times here recently is this pattern of, or I guess the structure that is required if you want to granularly and globally enforce a policy across all of your groups in the case of self-managed or subgroups in the case of SaaS. The only way to really do this globally and scalably today, as far as I understand, is you need to create the group or subgroup, create a project within it, create your policies within that project, which generates the policy project. And I can put all this down, Alexander, so you don't have to like type it. But then you can link up to the security policy project from a group, a subgroup, or an individual project. So that allows granular enforcement. I think that it's going to be another complexity when it comes to this piece because compliance frameworks are configured at the group level. So it seems like with the design here, I would not be surprised if it's limited in the ability to scope it based on where you've created this project. So you're probably pulling compliance frameworks within the group that you're in. Do you think that, would you agree with that, Artur? I can put this down on an issue to just to make it clear. Or here, let me pop open a tab and share my screen because I think we've kind of bumped up against this a few times. Okay, so if I am in a demo project here or a demo group, this is the structure that we've been recommending due to some limitations that we have. So you have to create, and this is in the context of SaaS. Keep in mind, you might have a self-managed instance with multiple business units using individual groups. And so subgroup would be kind of synonymous with group in that respect. But here, okay, I've created a group, created the policy project within it. And this is kind of like my UI policy editor view. When I create a policy, it creates this policy project. Now I can scope up like any subgroup. So all the projects under this are enforced, or I could individually enforce project A. So the project owner of project A can go and link up to this policy project. And that way B, C, D, E, and F are not scoped into the enforcement. That's a granular way to do that if you have a use case that requires it. So if I have this policy project and I create a new policy and scope it to a compliance framework, is it limited to pulling the labels for security group? Because if you have the structure, it may be very limiting for those customers that are trying to do this. And it's generally the customers with more groups and subgroups, like large organizations, mini projects, mini subgroups, mini groups. And that's where the pain is most significant. So we may need to think about the solution to ensure that if I'm in a different group or subgroup, that I can scope it. I can still scope it to compliance frameworks that might span across groups and subgroups. And I guess another kind of like nuance to this, just to kind of make sure it's clear. If I had just a compliance framework called compliance, the projects in scope in how do I want to put this? You might have compliance frameworks created in each subgroup, or sorry, I think this is really in the context of self-managed, since it's managed at the group level. Yeah, okay, sorry, I'm in SaaS. This is a group. Compliance frameworks are managed here. It's really the self-managed use case. Very sorry. In the case of self-managed, you might create a framework called compliance, and that works for the one group you've created the policies in, but then you might have 20 or 100 other groups, and they may have created a framework called compliance that you want to scope those projects into. So like if you're looking at this at the global level, you might want to include compliance framework labels from these other groups. So yeah, sorry, it took me a minute to get there, but in the context of SaaS, I think we're probably safe because the same frameworks would exist across all subgroups. So that's my mistake there. But yeah, for self-managed, that might be where we're gonna come up against a problem potentially.
All right, I believe you can write it down in the epic as a use case.
Yeah.
That we're gonna look this up. Possibly yes, but I need to see an example and probably set up the self-managed instance to verify it.
Yes. Yep. Sorry, but yeah, I think that's going to be potentially a challenge. So I'll document that in the issue and just make sure that that's clear.
All right.
Quick question on that. So the compliance framework could only be created on a top level group, right? Not on a subgroup or any other,
Yes.
For now.
So, but okay.
So you might have 20 different groups in a self-managed instance where you are trying to enforce policies globally. And each group, you might need to say you want to enforce this compliance framework globally. You might create the same framework in 20 different groups, and then you want to like scope those projects into the same enforcement. You may also have different security teams and compliance teams, so you might have some unique compliance frameworks in each of those 20 groups, and then you might have policies that are unique to those. So it is going to be a little bit of a challenge until maybe we have more of like an instance level management for policies and compliance frameworks. I'm not sure when that might change on the compliance side. I know that we have plans in the future to get to the instance level, or essentially the org level once there's a concept of an organization in GitLab. But yeah, I think it's good. There's a lot of dependencies there. So in the meantime, this is going to be a little trickier for self-managed. I think that the route we're on is probably going to be pretty straightforward for SaaS. So still want to keep that use case in mind, like that structure. But I think actually, as I see that demo and think about it a bit more, I think SaaS we're probably good on. So I'll document the self-managed instance scenario, and then we can dig into that further.
Sounds
so
great.
I know we're at or past time. Anything you wanted to touch on before we go, Alan?
I want to say feel free if you don't have time to disconnect. I'll just spend 2 or 3 more minutes just to say a little bit about FCL and ask custom YAML support to security policies. In terms of this epic, Andy has added another improvement that you can now include remote URL with the GitLab YAML file that you can enforce within the policy. So that's another improvement. And I believe he's working right now, and Martin is helping with precedence of variables, because that's another thing that's important to set there. So these are like two things. but yeah, work in progress, which is great. And then FCL, you might see my message on Slack that we are going through FCL right now. We're in the planning phase. So the history about FCL is that when we actually started to form this team, we had FCL. So Sashi was there and Dominic, we had a small team and we already had FCL. It's not a punishment. It's not something that it's made because we made something wrong. It's just a time for us to reflect about that and to spend some time to find gaps, what we could improve, and what kind of process changes we could implement to prevent them from happening. So the first thing is that this FCL will be probably limited to 2 or 3 engineers, not everyone, as there will be not enough work for everyone. And I don't want to stop anyone else from working on important things that you're already working on. So we're already working with Sashi and Marcus about multiple improvements, like adding some tests, working with test engineers on setting some alerts. So anything that will help us prevent this from happening in the future. So there is a link to FCL. You can read it through if you want. If you have any ideas what we could do to improve anything in the process or in our abilities to observe whatever is happening, feel free to chime in. And if you would like to volunteer as well and help with anything, let us know. Like you see a list of items that are added there. These are already assigned, but feel free to work on whatever it is. So yeah, if you have questions, let me know. I believe we're going to continue the discussion asynchronously. The FCL will start next week, will last for 5 days, and then we're going to end this up with a ceremony where we're going to celebrate in retrospect what we did. But yeah, no worries. Questions, concerns, all good? Alexander said it's good, so that means it's good. All right. Do you have anything else that you'd like to discuss in the group? It's such an amazing opportunity to have almost everyone on the call. Amazing.
Yeah, I really appreciate everyone hopping on. If this is really helpful, let's keep it going and share that it is helpful so that we know. And if it's not, let's keep iterating on the session. But personally, I think it was really helpful. I think we had some things that are in flight and in progress, and yeah, always a good opportunity to kind of get clarifications. So so yeah, thanks for that. I think that my issues for playing breakdown was just like double checking on where we are. If there's anything I can further help with, I didn't have a lot to add, but it sounds like these are already addressed. We're making good progress. And then I'm continuing to talk to customers. I just kind of voiced there as well. Like I talked to a customer this morning who is really excited about this feature and the ability to have that dynamic stage injection. So they're watching closely. Yeah, I think we're on the right track here. And yeah, if there are any open questions, feel free to send me another to-do and I'll work through my to-dos. I'm a little bit behind today. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day. See ya.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. See ya.
Yeah.